Sadgurubhyo Namaः. Om Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaः. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum.
So, good morning, good evening to all of you. Welcome to the fourth session. If we include the orientation session. So today we are going to reflect on third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And instead of summarizing what I have read through the LinkedIn post that each of you have done, I thought I'll just raise a question, or I can give you a prompt for you to focus on your small group discussions. So that way, it makes it easier for you to really concentrate on various questions. So if you all can mute yourself. I'll unmute myself. So in the groups, what would be interesting, like self-development groups, when you are discussing, as you are looking at your own feedback and reflections, keep also in mind, if you can reflect on instances when you were performing your duty that was intrinsically rewarding, regardless of the outcome. What does that suggest about your true nature of self, and what was your path? So just one question, keep it in mind. You will do your own reflections, but this might also be useful. Similarly, the communications group. Can you think about a situation while maintaining honest and compassionate communication that help you to resolve a difficult situation? When the stakes are higher, how would you handle such a communication and such a situation, based on what you have read in third chapter or something? Relationships. Actually consider a relationship that you are in that is challenging to you. It can be work, it can be home, it can be in the community. How might values and principles that you have learned from chapter 3 will help you to improve your relationship? If you are in career development, you might want to think about how you define success in your career by incorporating some of the lessons from Karma Yoga. If you are in leadership, you can think about a situation where you are a leader, where the right choice is not a popular one. How would you apply lessons of chapter 3 to ensure you lead dharmically or you lead ethically? Youth development, you can think about and discuss what are some ways in which we can make principles of Karma Yoga appealing and relevant to today's youth? And I think we have women's development and education, if I'm right? So the women's development, explore how chapter 3, the Karma Yoga, can provide a framework for addressing women's specific, gender specific challenges today. And finally, education, what are some practical ways we can integrate principles of Karma Yoga, what you have read in the chapter 3, into educational curricula or teaching methods today? Just these are prompt questions. You don't have to go deeper into any of them, but just so that there is a focus that can come out for today's session. Yeah, Shyam, you raised your hand. Unmute yourself.
Yes, Prasadji, thank you. Little more help on the communications would help. I wanted to get a little more clarity on what you were suggesting.
Okay. I'm suggesting if you are facing a difficult situation, I think each of us face different kinds of challenges when we are talking to either our family members, bosses, colleagues, customers, whatever, whomever we are facing. When you are having some challenging, conflicting situations where what you want or your interest and their interest are challenged, or where you think if you just tell the unvarnished truth to them, it might provoke more conflict or more discord. How would you communicate based on principles of Karma Yoga? So, like aware, because we think about truthful communication, mindful communication. So, anything that you can think about, how would you communicate based on how Krishnaji communicated? And what have you learned from the teaching so far? Does it make sense?
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So with those prompts, if there are no other questions, please go back into the small groups. Have your 30 minutes starting from now, and then we'll come back. And then we'll have further conversations. And then in the end, I will try to comment on, based on what you are saying, what I have read, I will try to add a little bit of extra. All right. So namaste, and have great group conversation. And feel free to go beyond the provocation and question that I have done. But I thought if we can do some centering around in each group, then each of our communication becomes very meaningful, in addition to whatever you are thinking about and reading about each other's comments and other things. Thank you.
And I think I saw one more person, right?
Yeah. See, Akanksha,
okay.
Krishna, another person who is today not able to join, Rama Devi, Saiji, Kalyanji. And so some of us, it's about half a dozen of us, are volunteering to put all these things together and organizing the logistics and all of it. The entire project is being driven by Kalyanji. He is the one.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Project director.
Under the guidance of Prasadji and Saiji.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Is everybody back? So
yeah, all are back, Prasadji. You can.
Okay. So which group wants to start today? Sorry, Sam raised a question. Okay.
Yes,
So Sam wants to share. Okay.
Prasadji, I will start. Yeah, I don't mind. I start. I may have a little background noise. I'm on the way to the airport, so I'm in the cab. So a little bit of background noise.
Sure.
In the communications group, I think we had a very, they were only Pavanji and me, very small, but we had a very engaging conversation. In the conversation, So this is part of the communications group. The topic that we kind of bounced upon is truthful and honest conversation. And when we use the word truthful and honest, we kind of discussed about different scenarios we communicate today, as within the family, maybe with relatives, in a corporate setting, with bosses. There are conversations of a father-daughter kind of a conversation where you may want to tell your daughter that, look, hey, you got to work your money to do this, or you got to do it your own way and put in your effort. There could be hard conversations at an office, for example, layoff conversations or lack of performance conversations. There could be family conflicts where family members don't agree on the same point of view, or it's a very intense and complex conversation to solve. The thought that came and what we discussed was, Pavanji brought out an interesting point in saying we need to be honest and kind in our conversations. We have an open point which we can discuss later. Kindness, I'm not really sure how to correlate it, because if you look at karma yogic approaches, we say that, look, you got to do what you have to do. So I'm not too sure about the word kind, and I will leave that for Prasadji and rest of the people to maybe give us some guidance on this. The second most important point was awareness. And in the awareness, what we are saying that we tend to be impulsive. We need to become non-impulsive and more mindful of the responses that we need to give. The third point that also came into our mind is many a time we need to be careful and understand how are you responding. Are you responding as a parent? Are you responding as a colleague? Are you responding as a teacher? Are you responding as a manager, or the situation that you have to be? And I think the point that came out is we need to be honest and very clear in communication, like the verses of the Gita, the question and the answer. We also need to be authentic without expecting an outcome. It needs to guide the right direction, but we should not worry whether the advice taken is not to please somebody or expect a reward. I think, Pavanji, I hope I've not missed anything else out, but I thought these were the points that we had covered.
Yes, yes, Dr. Shyam Sundaram. So I think we covered pretty much all the points that we discussed, but we kept on talking about some examples throughout, right? Like father-daughter conversation, or a corporate setting with employee kind of conversation. So we also discussed that communication is key pillar for other 6 categories that you have laid out, and to excel in any of the other categories, it starts with communicating, right? Communicating the right message at the right time, letting go of expectations while communicating, thinking before speaking, and being honest and truthful and selfless communication. So this not only just gives peace of mind to the communicator, but a very clear answer to the listener, and to pose a meaningful conversation back and forth. But again, we are letting the word kind here to be debated further on how to use kindness in a harsh setting, right? Sometimes with a small daughter who asks for an ice cream, you want to harshly say, I don't want to give you ice cream. Otherwise, they don't get it, right? Sometimes kids don't understand the implications, or they are not at an age to understand. So you need to be kind. But in a corporate setting, it's not always possible. So we want to debate that and understand a little more. Thanks again for the time.
Excellent points both of you have brought out. See, the deeper insight in communications is something that we need to pay attention to, for sure. But what you are actually both identifying is, instead of talking from a 30,000 feet, or instead of talking about a generic context, there are both elements. One is, does the communication, according to what we have learned in the Karma Yoga, what is the role of kindness in communication? That is a critical point you are bringing. And you are saying, in a personal context, especially there, when it becomes specific, when a child who should not be eating ice cream, if they ask for ice cream, how do I refuse in a kind way? It is not good for you. When you are not well, ice cream is not going to help you. And at the same time, in a corporate context, if a person who keeps on saying me, if they ask for a raise or a bonus or something else, which you don't think is an appropriate thing, how do you say no? So I think the deeper insight into communication only comes, first of all, when we are specific and when we are grounded in a context and when we make the situation to be very, very clear. So it goes from specific to general. So we should start at the ground level before we take it to 30,000 feet level. That is where actually people can understand. So the key here, the kindness, where does it come in? There are three principles which I observed from Bhagavad Gita so far. If you look at, the first thing is, there is a certain, what you might call the attitude of gratitude that, that Arjuna brings. You know, he wants to go to the middle, he wants to do pranams to everybody, he wants to do. But when he looks at everybody, he gets overwhelmed and then he gets caught with an emotion. So the first response the Krishnaji does in his communication is first to remind him of the commitment. Then remind him how sometimes getting caught in the moment, getting caught in the emotion that is arising in the moment, that can prevent you to know what is the larger purpose with which you have entered the context. In this case, entered the war. Then, when he does not respond, he tries to shake him out of it by first very strong push in the second chapter. As we said, what is this? And then he tries to talk about the outcome. So if you notice, the communication takes different tones, which happened in the second chapter. In the third chapter, Krishnaji is responding to to Arjuna's question, when do I use buddhi, Gnana Yoga? When do I use action? So this response that he is bringing is no longer addressing the emotional part of it. He is answering the question of what needs to be. That means there is a background of relationship that is already established. There is a service orientation Krishna brings. While Arjuna brings the attitude of gratitude, Krishna first, he says, okay, you want me to take you to the middle of the battleground? I will take you. He did that in the first chapter. Then he tried to be an advisor and a mentor, because he says in the second chapter, he asks, Nishchitam me, you tell me as a teacher, what should I do? What should I not do? Karpanya dosham apahata swabhava pruchami tvam dharma sammuda achetah. So when he asks that one, he tells you, he is not asking for emotional support. He is not asking for coddle me and please forgive me, I don't know how to say. No, he says, just tell me what is right, what is wrong. Why? Because in the context of dharma, I have become stabda, acheta. So that means, what is dharma, what is not dharma, tell me. So in that case, he listened to that, he responded in the second chapter. But now in the third chapter, he is asking now as a teacher, please tell me as a teacher, not as a, tell me what is right, what is wrong. Dharma is not the question it comes down to. Now it is the question of clarify my questions. When in that context, he is now trying to talk about, what is the right karma, what is karma, karma, and, how do you do that? The idea of do it as a yagna. And that means everything you are doing, there is a larger purpose to be served. Don't look at your communication to your daughter or your communication to your subordinate or your boss. Look at it from in that particular yagna, in that particular context. What is the larger purpose that need to be served? If the larger purpose to be served is to give the bonus, give it. Or if in that larger purpose it is appropriate, even if it deserves the bonus, it will generate large amount of resentment in other people, don't give it. You see what I'm saying? So now the kindness it comes down to is first, ground in the context. Second, pay attention to the relationship. Third, look at what is the larger purpose to be served. And then you answer in a honest and in a purpose-driven communication. But in doing so, make sure your self-expression that aligns with what I am telling and what is my dharma. I need to be clear. That is when it becomes a yagna. So, truthfully talking, truthfully communicating, at the same time, a benevolent way, a beneficial way. If you can do, then it can improve the personal and professional relationship. As Syam pointed out, communication is the basis for any relationship. So if you break or make relationships in your communication, there may not be any further relationship to deal with. So you need to be always conscious how far you can pull or you don't pull. So in that respect, if you can pay attention to not only the context, but also the relationship in which you are speaking into. So that means, again, what we said before, how are you listening while you are speaking? How are you paying attention to the yagna concept while you are responding? And how are you being authentic and honest and purposeful while you are communicating? These are subtle but important points that many of you have commented on, even in your what you call comments while you are doing it. You brought up some of these things. But only thing which I'm emphasizing in here is the role of inner conflict. That is what you brought it beautifully. Your inner conflict on when to be kind. By the way, people say, if you remember in second chapter, he said, whatever you do it from the state of yoga. Yogastha kuru karmani, he said. You need to remember second chapter when we go into third chapter. That means do whatever you do from an equanimous state of mind. That means kindness is integral part of your communication. Even if you are going to give them a punishment, don't do it in anger. Do it in kindness. So let me stop here by saying kindness is something that becomes extremely important. As we go further in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Maitra Karuna Evacha, he says. And this is the message here is not very different from even in Yoga Sutras, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. We talk about it as something. And even in Buddhism, they talk about as Dharma Viharas. So, Karuna and Maitri are always preferred ways in which even if you have to offer punishment, even if you are saying harsh words, make sure your tone and make sure that you are connected to them and do it as yagna. Don't do it as because I'm given the opportunity to be a mentor or a coach or a professor or a boss or a parent. Don't do it. Do it from the state of yagna. I'm going to do this for the larger good. So those are some points that come into mind. Thank you very much. Dr. Sakshi.
Namaste, sir. Namaste, everyone. We have a very, insightful discussion on the our basically our group focused on self-development. So before, concluding what we have discussed, I just want to share one points from all of us, the main pointers on which what we have discussed on self-development, that the learnings from we get from chapter 3. One person, he talked that he saw two parts from chapter 3, that is knowledge and work, and both go simultaneously. Knowledge and work both go together. So everyone here on this earth is to do some work. Without it, we are worthless. The one point. Second point is that fake ego. One person talked about that he has seen that how to remove that false ego, that we are the doers. Basically, I did this, I did that, I am the doer. But no, not exactly this is true, because we are just we are not the doers, we are the agents of the Almighty, who sends us here to do perform some karmas. And also kartavya bhav, swadharma. These are some of the principles that we learned from chapter 3 on, and somehow these principles gives us the reflection on self development. Then someone talked about that I'm here on this earth because I act as a nurturer, not the doer of everything. So Mamta ma'am, she said very good point, that she loved Krishna as a friend, because she don't want ki Krishna is matlab Krishna is there in each and every challenges of life, but Krishna is there for me as a friend who guides, who consoles, who counsels, who do everything with me and for the betterment of me. So Harshit, who is the youngest participant of our group, he talks about that we all are learning in life, because our life is a learning stage. From infancy to the death, we are in a learning process. So whenever we face challenges in the life, whenever we have we have to face the hard realities of life, we just go to Bhagavad Gita, we open the book and we find out the answer. So this is the crux of our group. So right now I'm explaining what we discussed, that from chapter 3, which is a chapter on karma yoga. Okay, so it's basically a path of selfless action. It's a chapter which profound insight on self-development, which gives us the importance of performing actions, because action plays a very important role in our life. And without doing any action, we are just like a body without soul. So this chapter encourages us to perform our duties, highlights the value of mindfulness, self-reflection, and spiritual growth. Why it is important? Because somehow these parameters guide us to align the actions with the inner purpose and the values which we require for our contented life. By applying these principles, we all can develop a strong sense of self and face the hard realities of life. So, from the discussion, we also come to the importance of three gunas: Sattvic gun, Rajas gun, and Tamas gun. So, by understanding and balancing these three gunas, we can develop harmonious personality, overcome the weaknesses or whatever limitations or obstacles we are having in our life. We achieve this spiritual growth, which really helps us in realizing our own self. So the goal is not to eliminate any guna from our life, but to balance and harmonize them to achieve a state of inner peace. And the state of inner peace, which is really required for the self-development. So this is the crux of our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sakshi. See, your comments and your discussions, and also when I look at the overall conversations on self-development that showed up in from various conversations. I think there were about 18 comments or something like that. When I look at it, I think you brought in some very, very important points. And you also added the concept of gunas and some of them also in this discussion. There are 2-3 things which come out of third chapter, Karma Yoga, from what I'm hearing as well as this. Inevitability of action. it doesn't matter how much gnana we have, how much reflection we are doing, but our body is dynamically aligned for action. That's why even from our own project, the Karma Yoga is one of the most important, because ultimately we are driven to karma. Right? As long as we have what you call three kinds of karmas, which we hear in other parts of Vedanta or something, Sanchita karma, Agami karma, and Kriyamana karma. Like, there are in various prarabdha karma. If you look at various names and various ways in which we think about the three, all of them will drive us, because ultimately those will, swabhava will drive us to action. Only thing which it doesn't do as self-development, we need to remember in the 3rd chapter, what is the attitude with which we do the karma? We are going to do karma no matter what, but what is it that is driving within you? What is the, are you doing with an attitude of gratitude, or attitude of anger and frustration, or certain feeling of victimized mood? I am the victim. Why does it happen to me? Why do all these things happen to me? Why do I lose job? Why do I have difficulty in my family? Why do my boss doesn't like me? Why do I get these, not so great projects? We may use a much more interesting word like shitty projects. That's a different case. So our language, but key part is detachment from the outcomes. So that is where the yagna concept comes into picture. I think what I'm seeing from the comments, which you made, Sakshi, plus and the comments I've seen, what I'm recognizing is there is an opportunity for each of us to dwell deeper into transformation, because when you are talking about detached engagement, see, this is not detachment from action, but detachment from the fruit of action. That is the biggest mistake several times people struggle with. So he's saying, don't stop action. Keep doing the action, but don't get caught up with the outcome, the fruit of action. So when you bring that detachment from the fruit of action, what kind of a personal growth, what kind of a self-realization that you will get when you do what you do without necessarily getting attached to action. So emotion at some level will go out of it. Our desire to a certain extent will go out of it when you do from a yagna state of mind. Then attachment of, the emotion does not drive our decision, but detachment from the fruit will give us the clarity to make better decisions. So then the decision becomes a choice. When the detachment comes into picture, it is no longer like what you said, kartrutva bhav and bhoktrutva bhav, they go away. And even in the karta bhavana, you talk about nimitta karma. You are just nimitta matram bhavasavya sachi, he says in another part of Bhagavad Gita. You are just nimitta karanam. You are not the person who is the prime cause of it. Prime cause is going on in the universe, you just act. But it is through you that the action takes place. Don't get caught and think that you are the actor. You are not the actor. You are just the instrument of action. I think those are some points which we can keep in mind, especially the Swadharma concept. I think, you might want to, as many of you are, as you are writing the comments, if you notice, I keep provoking you to say, these are wonderful comments about general stuff. But what are you going to do about it? What are you going to act on? What is your Kurukshetra? If you can give more story about what situation you are facing and how are you applying it, How is it bringing clarity, like a mini case study? Because you are a professor, Sakshi, I can say, if you bring it mini incident and a mini case studies into your comments as we go forward, that also becomes beautifully, reflected on how other people will respond. Intellectually and conceptually, we all are very good. Because there are professors, there are authors, there are conveners, there are swamis, there are wonderful people here. But how do I bring it into my own? What is my swadharma? According to my swabhava, according to my gunas, if you can personalize your comments even more, I think the value you are not only going to get for yourself, the role of yagna becomes clear for the entire group. Because when you speak from, this is what I'm facing, this is what I'm applying, this is what I'm getting, and this is what and where I have questions, that kind of a operating at your level with a larger perspective will transform not only you, but also transform other people in the community. That is where the self-development becomes like by seeing you, I learn. Actually, by the world reflects in you when you reflect the world. But if I only think self as me and myself alone, then we miss the boat. So the idea is the world is a reflection of yourself, and you are the reflection of the world. How do you become the reflection of the world is where your Swadharma comes alive beautifully. Thank you. Santosh ji, you have a hand up.
Yes, thank you. I was part of the career development group conversation. It was a small group. We were jokingly saying that maybe people have found other careers that our group has shrunk from 10 to 6 to 3. Jokes apart, the conversation centered mostly around verse 21 and verse 25 in terms of career development. So what we spoke about is verse 21 in terms of people follow a great man, what they do. And we said in the context of the organization, this could be people that we aspire to grow into from our current role to another role. These are people that we may want to then approach to be our mentors and then understand what it is that they do and follow the best practices that they have. And the reason why we spoke about best practices is sometimes people follow others blindly, but then you need to really look at everybody has certain good things. Everybody has certain things that they don't do all that well. You need to focus on what is the good practices that this person has as a mentor for you to grow from a career perspective. You have to have those conversations, understand what you want to take and not just blindly follow everything that that person does. So that's where we need to sort of have a little bit of thought from our own side to say, what is it that we want to take and emulate them to get to where we think we want to be. The conversation also went around saying in today's world, things are changing so fast that the mentor does not always have to be somebody who's older and senior to you in the organization. It could be somebody who is your peer or also somebody who is junior to you. They may have certain knowledge and capability that you may not have. So again, look for mentors, not just upwards, but also sideways and downwards in the organization to figure out what you want to learn so that you can then improve yourself and your career can go the direction that you want to go to. And the other thing, when we spoke about verse 25, there's also a correlation to verse 47 from chapter 2 around results and what you need to do. And in this context, when it talks about saying, hey, wishing for the welfare of the world, in the context of a career, the world can be seen as the organization that you're working in. So when you are actually looking at growing as a leader, or you want to sort of improve your own career, look at what you can do, not just from your perspective, but also what benefits the organization. It's like the example that you were giving, why did I end up in this project? Sometimes you may have to raise your hand to work on taking a project which is in a bad state to a better state for the sake of the organization, which then means that you will develop yourself from a career perspective, or because of what you have done, people will give you other opportunities which will take you along in your career. So look at that from the career development perspective. So those are the conversations that we had in our small group.
Wonderful. I think I like where your conversations are. You are really applying the concept of duty and concept of Gita in career context. See, the next step which you may want to look at that will actually clarify some of the questions and points which you raised is, if you imbue your career path with some of your deeper questions which you are raising, spiritual goals along with career goals. If you can begin to think about, how do I do this? Because it's a challenge even for me to think about from practical to, little medium term itself is difficult. How do I integrate philosophical perspective or a spiritual perspective? And what are the benefits of doing that, such kind of integration in my career? Are some questions which may come. I think in the career, there is one which is immediate, whatever is taking place. That is the Kurukshetra ground. So that is where our attention goes to. But our action in that immediate, ground in which it takes place is shaped by your attitude. You can have an attitude of like what Sakshi introduced earlier, tamasic attitude. If you try to do, then you will become very concrete. I want it now. I don't know what will happen later. So give me the promotion now, or give me the title change, even if you don't give me the raise, or at least give me bonus. You want to gather as much as you can in this particular one, because that will tell you that they really are serious about saying you did a good job. But in that way, when you become tamasic, you will miss out a lot. Of course, a rajasic way, you could look at it and say, yes, I want it. But if you can negotiate for, I won't give you the bonus right now. I'll give you a increment at the end of this, so that you will get year after year, you will get money instead of one-time money. That might, the selfish attitude that comes with the rajasic might say, I'll forego the bonus. Just give me the increment at the end of the year. That's also one way we can think about it. The third one is, you say, I don't need the money right now, but give me the title. Because that's more important. In the society, you are not giving me concrete money, but you are giving me position, respect, and other people I can show off that I'm doing very well. That's a rajasic one. If you are sattvic, what you would do in the career development based on what yajna attitude and the karma that we need to do would be, you will redefine success. What is, like long time ago, I had written an article called, Art of Accomplishment. Especially when Stephen Covey's book of 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders came in the San Francisco Bay Area that I live. At that time, there was only one temple that was prominent. The Hindu temple was something called a Siva Vishnu temple in Livermore. They were coming up with a brochure, kind of a, some kind of a, for Kumbhabhishekam or something, a brochure. They wanted me to write an article. Is there something like, when I integrate spiritual perspectives with my material perspectives, how can I redefine success? Can you write something about 7 habits of people from Hindu perspective? So I had written that. You can Google it, and if you don't find it, let me know and I'll send you, because that was one article which was republished several times. I even wrote up a systems thinker article on accomplishment using a non-spiritual language. And there is also a version where I talked about some of these from a Hindu principles perspective. There are both versions. You may be able to find it in mithya.com, my website from 1990s, or Google you can do. Why am I bringing that up is, if you can redefine what you call success and career growth in the concepts of third chapter in the Karma Yoga, you will actually find that the happiness becomes everyday perspective. And there are ways in which you can do, like some of you have raised questions in the chat session, like a 17-year-old driving Porsche, or how do I, postpone some of the Karvampala? How do I do this? How do I not pay attention to the results? Isn't that what bosses are constantly driving to say, pay attention to the results? We don't care about, in India, they pay attention to process and the hard work. But in America, we want results, results, results. Results for breakfast, results for lunch, results for dinner. Right? So in that attitude, how do I apply that? It's an excellent question. What I found in this, you may want to really look at, is the concept of service. That is the yagna concept applied to career development. Can I become a servant leader? Can I become a wise leader? That means when I actually do what I do as a service, then I am no longer worried about whether I'm getting compensation for it. So when I do what I do with Nishkama Karma, when I do it as I'm volunteering for this, then I will separate out putting the food on the table, the salary that I get, bonuses I get will become separate. I will do my 100% or 120% if is needed, but we will take the other part, in a separating these two. It doesn't become entitlement attitude will go away. I deserve this. This is what other company is paying. Or if I leave this job and become a consultant, this is my market rate. Some of those will come because your way of engaging with it, as you are taking yourself as, I am this, I should be this, all of that type of attitude is the one that is getting in the way. But that's all part of ego, according to Krishna. When I do this as a yagna, I have to look at it as a service to be done. Yes, they may give me compensation, but that I'm taking it as, thank you for this. This is my blessing. I think if you can just shift it and disconnect what you do and what you get, then there are three things that will come. Number one, joy in doing what you are doing. Number two, the effort you put in becomes much easier. And number three, attitude of other people towards you will also change. And because of that, career development will take place automatically, because they like the kind of attitude you show and the vitality, energy, accountability, responsibility you take, irrespective of the compensation, that will really show up to other people. However blind, deaf, and dumb your managers are, they can recognize when you bring that type of attitude. I think you might want to try it out and see what happens. All right? Thank you. Kiran?
I have a quick question. I know I don't want to lose the context. You told very good thing about America is more result oriented, and India we have a process orientation and all of that. They're all good. I'm not commenting on that one. And taking these things as a yagna, which you just told. So we are a blended society from career
Yes.
perspective, from business perspective. There's no difference between India versus USA versus America, sorry, UK and all. How do you see that there's a lot of conflict, friction goes between result-oriented mindset, process-oriented mindset? And I know that you will say that yagna is the right way. But still, I'm finding it very tough to blend these.
Yeah, thank you for that. And a quick answer for that is, it comes with a lot of practice, as you rightly say. Even for me, where I've been looking at and examining these for more than 30 years, my first immediate thing comes to, what is in it for me? Why should I do this? But then I have to consciously pay attention to, why am I doing it? In doing what I'm doing, as my good friend Raghu continues to point out, when I'm doing what I'm doing, what am I really doing? Of course, another question in the Gita context I will bring in is, who am I being in doing this? Doing is the karma aspect. Being is my spiritual aspect. So, is the doing dominating thought, or is the being dominating thought? That is an acquired taste. It won't come right away, Atul. So I am with you that autopilot way to develop it, slowly it will develop and then you will become spiritual. You will be able to do it automatically. I find in Gita there is nothing about automatic. Swabhav will continue to drive based on gunas. But you have to become Nitya Sattvotsava Bhava Arjuna, he says in some other place. Sattva guna, you have to become dominant, and you have to go gunatita. You have to go beyond the guna. That means you have to remember what your dharma is. So it has to be a continuous and a constant vigilance to what is driving your behavior. Every single action, every single time, you have to remind yourself, am I doing it for this purpose or this purpose? By the way, I'm not negating the fruit. By the way, later in the chapter, we have even something about karma tyaga versus karma phala tyaga. It is not just the attitude, but also you have to give it away. So, this is an acquired taste, my friend. And this acquisition requires a lot of awareness, mindfulness, and constant choice making. It is not a decision to be made, but it is a choice to be had. Okay? All right. Thanks. Kiran?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Again, we continued on the karma yajna for youth. So here we had a very nice 4 different dimensions that came in here. Sundarji brought out, on continuation of what we discussed earlier, the importance of role models. Because for youth, ultimately, they are questioning everything. So when they're questioning, they need to see some live example for them. So Sundarji emphasized the importance of having these role models from different walks of life. He emphasized like chess players, how they are transcending, I mean, from where they are to where they come. And they also demonstrate a lot of this karma yajna thing so easily. Because they are in the process, they are not worried about winning or losing, and that we all are able to relate and appreciate that. And similarly, he talked about a certain movie where the challenges the person goes through, his focus on the action, doing what is right in that given time, whatever his situation is, was another point he emphasized. He also talked about those who clearly demonstrated their intent and followed through by action. He gave the example of Baba Amte and his next Prakash Amte, who is continuing, and both have been awarded. They never worked for awards, but awards just came as byproduct. Their focus was on the intent and the action related to that. Similarly, he talked about the soldiers who fight with a clear intent. They have that intent, and therefore they are not focused on getting the medals and all. So these are some of the examples that one can take to the youth, so that they understand the karma yajna to that extent, that focusing on the result is what we all know, right? I brought in the point of the moment we go to college, first question we ask is, tell me about the campus placements. What job am I going to get? How much salary am I going to get? So in that kind of thing, how do you learn? So this was this kind of translated into my point. I brought in the point that the chapter 3, I mean, somewhere I think all of us on this in this call somewhere have that devotion to Krishna, all said and done. How we connect is different for each of us, but there is that connection. So there is one particular verse I personally strongly relate to is where he talks about, this is my matam, eme matamidam nityam. So if you love him, so you simply follow him, right? And if he's the highest, why follow someone else? Follow the highest and he will show the way. Was where I felt that there will be no, at least I could get rid of disillusionment, because when you read other stories, you don't know the whole story. There is always the question, oh, maybe it worked for him, will it work for me? Not at all. But when it's directly coming, then I feel it kind of helped me hold on to this concept of karma yoga itself.
Right.
And the other aspect of the cyclicality aspect. The cyclicality aspect also can create a karma situation, because, oh, if it is a youth cycle, even if I don't do, nothing will happen. Maybe I can simply be the passive person kind of thing. But we discussed about the importance of sports, where the emotion, experience, and result can be experienced in a much shorter cycle than in a longer career cycle or other places. So sports is one area through which youth can experience karma yoga much more faster. Then we also discussed about arts and also theater as a way to experience these things, because ultimately somewhere the intellectual understanding is good, but I think only when you experience is when you start getting it. I think Aditi ji jumped in, but she gave a very important point. She simply said understanding Swadharma is do whatever is in front of you and do it to your best capacity. That way you are fulfilling your dharma. And while there could be conflicts, a point came about conflicts. So Sundarji came about, gave a good framework that.
Kiran Kumar, you're giving the entire play-by-play.
I'm just summarizing the last point. Yeah, sure. So Sundarji gave a great point, I think, which is beneficial to everyone, is to list down all the roles and understand the dharma of all the roles. And it is in a very, very, very rare situation is when there is a conflict. In most cases, it is you just be in the role and do the dharmic aspect of it. That becomes the yajna aspect of your contribution. So I think our focus was mainly on how do we take this so non-intuitive karma yoga to youth. So
Excellent.
This was our discussion. Thank you.
See, there are 3-4 points which you brought are very critical. One is the role models, and role models right now are sports, movies, entertainment, music, army, politicians, for lack of or for good of whatever you want to call. So you are right that youth will look at us and see whether we are actually doing what we are saying. If our actions are inspiring them to think or reflect or do something differently, then they will listen to us on how to do it. If our actions are not consistent with it, and if our actions are not actually connecting with what's going on, then chances are they will not listen to what we are saying at all. As a matter of fact, youth are really, they rub it in your face if what you are doing is not consistent with what you are saying. They will call you a hypocrite directly, no matter what your age is or what your role is, whether you are a professor or a parent or a grandparent or a boss, they will let you know, because the youth have much less fear. The key part, what we may want to do is connect them a little bit more to appropriate entertainment, appropriate role models, like whether, recently the IPL has been something for Indian people has been a fascination. Cricket has been one of the major this one, like badminton, because of people who have been really good in badminton and getting the major championships of some of that. And movies and singers are always going to be, whether it is Taylor Swift or something else, somebody else, it becomes very important. If we can use those. One thing I found very useful, by the way, I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Legend of Bagger Vance. Legend of Bagger Vance is a movie based on Bhagavad Gita, completely based on Bhagavad Gita, by the way. Even the author, Stephen Pressfield, he wrote a book called Legend of Bagger Vance first. And in that, he talks about Karma Yoga, Gnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga quite clearly. Robert Redford directed, and this is a 20-year-old movie, and it is like a golf game. So there is a golf, there is a love, and there is a, Arjuna Vishada Yoga to Nishkama Karma. Everything gets displayed, including the golf caddy was a black man, just like a Krishna was a black man. We call him Nilamega Syama, but that essentially what it means is he was dark. So he did not have fair and lovely or whatever other things which are there at that time. He can get his skin to look fairer, and he didn't care at that time, and he did what he did. So they put some people like that in this. So check it out. Check it out if any of you are interested, especially for youth. If you are engaging with, get them to see the movie with you and stop at different places and different sequences. And then ask them, what do you see? Do you see a connection? What would you do if you were to be in the hero's situation? Bhagavad Gita may be a little sometimes appropriate or not appropriate, like or dislike. But a movie, people will engage with it. So in some respects, you might call that is a Gita on the green. Green is called like a golf playground. So my sense is we need to encourage them to engage with what they are fascinated with, whether it is entertainment, whether it is movies, whether it is sports, whether it is war. Use those metaphors to bring Bhagavad Gita to them. Especially the 3rd chapter, if you want to do, you connect them with, because they are all environmentally sensitive, they are much more aware of their larger purpose. So connect their purpose, connect meaning, and help them to find direction. What is the direction they are taking for their life, for their studies, for their jobs? In the context of that, their jobs and growth and education, try to engage some of these points which you are learning about role models. Who is your role model? Why is that you are taking that person as a role model? What characteristics from that role model is inspiring you to make your career choices, life choices, education choices, and job choices? If you speak in their language and work with it, it might become a lot more. By the way, I just want you to know, it's already 7 minutes over. I understand, we have Aniket, I'll work with them and complete. And I understand if in the middle, if some of you who have to go or to sleep or something else, I can understand, but I will try to make it as quick as possible. Aniket?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So I'm representing our group, which was discussing more about leadership. In our group, we had Ashish, Atul, Bikram Kumar, and Sanjay. We started with the point that Arjuna had a really good and open communication style, where in the first 2 shlokas, he makes it very clear that Krishna has just talked about the importance of jnana, and then why are you asking me to do this ghor karma? And then he also says, give me a clear thing as to what is it that I exactly need to do. So don't give me this round and round thing. So that's a really good and clear communication style that he has, and he wants a capsule version of the knowledge from him.
Yes.
Then Ashish brought up a point about leadership style that is shown by Krishna. Broadly, from a point of view of a leader as an initiator, a leader can be a leader only with the actions, not just with thoughts. So thoughts and actions, what is the perfect combination? And one of the examples of that is where Krishna also mentions that while I am a Lord myself, but I still do the actions that have been given to me, or that is my karma. At the end of every day in the war, Krishna was seen as the charioteer who was cleaning the horses, tending to their wounds, and doing his karma, and that was inspiring everyone near him. Now, we also had Atul, who mentioned about we communicate with our peers and juniors as leaders. We also communicate with the bosses. So precise communication is very important. It's important to take the decisions and take the ownership for those decisions, and ensure that the right karma that you are doing as a leader, by taking the decisions, you also take the responsibility for the decision. If it goes wrong, it's fine, but the intentions matter a lot, and those intentions are what is seen by everyone around you, and that is the true message that actually is sent out to everyone. Then we also had a discussion about the 35th shloka, and this shloka was about Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharmat Sunushtita. That's mainly about your own dharma. That is the one that you need to follow, not someone else's dharma that you are able to do really well. And the examples about this is what we see a lot around us, where someday you will see, hey, coaching is something which is going on. So if I'm an educator, I will suddenly try to become a coach. After some time, I will see, hey, stock market seems to be booming. Maybe I should take that up. So you need to know what is your dharma and continue to focus on that swadharma. And that importance of that is really well established and underlined by this entire shloka. This is also where Sanjay shared an incident about someone he had been coaching for some time, someone who is a really hardworking professional who works in a startup, and he's so passionate about his work that he doesn't mind stepping into the other people's work as well, getting it done himself, and that might elbow some people in the wrong way, and that's the conflict that he was facing. And we connected this with the 37th shloka, which is about Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhava, where because of the Rajo Guna that is in your mind, your karma will increase to do all the things yourself. And that is what this person needs to continue to focus on. We had one more point of discussion that was about the 30th shloka, where in the 30th shloka, Krishna mentions about Nirashir Nirmamo Bhutva Yudhyasva Vigata Jwara. Now, this also appeared to be a point or a sentence which is supposed to invigorate Arjuna and motivate him as an affirmation sentence. So as a leader, you're also supposed to give that excitement to your team, and that is the way Krishna is leading Arjuna here. Towards the end, we also had another point about the VUCA word. Now, VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's a situation of constant, unpredictable change. And we also discussed that these days reflection is reducing, and lots of work is needed by everyone to consciously reflect upon their actions and continue to take actions, not just keep on reflecting. So that's pretty much the gist of what we discussed.
Thank you, Aniket. See, you have brought up a lot of important points. You connected with a lot of slokas, and the idea of how to do things without, Vigata Jwaraha, or the whole idea Kama Eva, Krodha Eva, Rajoguna Samudbhavaha, or the idea of role models. I think you brought up a lot of important, valuable points. All of them come down to leaders acting as first role models, second with clarity of Swadharma, third recognizing why they do what they do. It is the gunas that drive our behavior majority of the times. And even the gunas among them, rajas, the selfishness, the certain way in which ahankar, all of them play a role. So he says, you need to be watchful of that. And why do they play the role? Because even though we talk about Shadripus, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, Kama and Krodha he is saying, because at some level, these are the fundamental, what you call what you might call these are the basic things that keep multiplying, and complex versions of it become the other ripus. But Kama and Krodha are the ones which become extremely this one. And we talked about in second chapter, Kama, whether you pacify it by working with it and giving more fodder for that or not, generally Kama results in Krodha. So there is a attachment between Kama and Krodha itself. But the anger about somebody else or about ourselves becomes based on our own expectations that we could not fulfill. Or Krodha because somebody else did not fulfill your expectations. I think it is extremely remembered in the leadership role, especially in the third chapter. Are we doing what we are doing from a yajna perspective? Are we engaged in continuous learning and self-reflection to stay effective as a leader to others and as a leader to myself? Self-leadership. And are you grounded in dharma? Are you morally and ethically grounded in your actions? So there are lots of points in this. Moral and ethical grounding, staying effective as a leader to myself and as a leader to my others, continuous learning, not just what I learned before. Am I learning right now? What am I learning in this particular context? And then self-reflection and self-introspection. We talk about it as mananam, shravanam, and nididhyasanam. Are we listening correctly? That addresses the communication stuff. Are we reflecting on our role in the conflict? That also addresses the relationship concept. When we begin to look at it like this, each concept into deeper and deeper way, to think about when I'm doing, when I'm writing, when I'm talking, when I'm in relationship, develop the Sakshi Bhavana. You develop yourself to look at yourself as a third party. In working with Saiji and many other people, Raghu and all of us in the Institute of Indic Wisdom, we talk about 4 ways of being. Of course, Karta Bhavana is the one which everybody knows, but still we are, in this chapter, we are learning what kind of a Karta are we, how can we be a better Karta, how can we do Nishkama Karma, what are the characteristics that need to happen. But there are also ways of being a Sakshi. Can you be a witness to yourself? That is when the self-reflection and introspection will help you the most and become a better leader. So those are some concepts which, based on what you said, they come to my mind at this moment. Thank you for doing a deeper dive and working with it and continuing to really write your reflections. They are very meaningful. One thing which I might remind you, if you are telling that, hey, we went from 10 to 6 to 3. Now let me ask, who is going to talk to your colleagues and make them come or find out why they are not able to come? Do you think it will automatically happen? What is your role in managing that relationship? What is your role in communicating to other people? Not that, oh, you were supposed to come, you didn't come, how bad of you. Instead of that, hey, I missed you. I missed your comments. I would love for you to be participate. I would love to see your comments. Last week, you put a wonderful comments in that. This week, you didn't put that. So how do you use this as a yagna? We are doing a, as you said, not a gnana yagna. That is wonderful. Swamis and some of them do that. I don't have the capability to do that, but we are doing karma yagna. Each of us to act each week, reading certain slokas in each chapter. Next week, it will be fourth chapter. Fourth chapter is also very important and very interesting. Read it, reflect on it, work with other people in your team. Let us see whether you can get all the 140 people who signed up in the beginning to start engaging in that. Let us see what happens. And let us see whether you can get all your team back in your conversation and all your team to write comments on the LinkedIn. That's a challenge which I'm suggesting. Maybe it is not we who are doing the yagna. You are willing participants, but you are also the Ritviks to do the yagna. So see what you can do without taking my provocation as, in right way. So I'm challenging you to look at how can you be a leader and get your groups back and get your team to contribute the best. Okay. With that, I'll take leave. Have a wonderful, wonderful week going forward. And please start reading and reflecting on chapter 4. Next week, that's what we like. Thank you. And Saiji, can you do the invocation?
Om. Sarvesham Sastirbhavatu. Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu. Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu. Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om. Shanti. Shanti. Shanti.
Thank you.